Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. The Lakers have advanced to the main draw of the playoffs. It wasn't easy and it wasn't pretty, but they beat Minnesota on Tuesday, 108-102. We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. It's always going to be free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And 15,000 subscribers are over there on Locked On Lakers on the YouTube channel, a place where people will be relieved, where they will be probably worn out, a little upset, a little happy, a lot of things. After the Lakers' 108-102 win Tuesday night in the play-in game, the 7-8 game over Minnesota at the Crypt.
Really quick before we even get into the game, because you mentioned the YouTube community for Locked On Lakers, we have in mid-April of 2023 already passed the view count for all of 2022. And 2022, by the way, numbers weren't bad. Nope. It's just you guys have been showing up in droves, loyalty, I assume, telling other people to show up here. Either way, it feels appropriate to say thank you after a game that probably took 7 years off all of your lives. Yeah. But for real, thank you very much.
Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/NBA60 and use the code NBA60 for 60% off, plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh. All right, so much to get into today, Andy. The main result, the end result after all of this, is the Lakers are advancing to the first round of the playoffs. They will play the Memphis Grizzlies game 1 Sunday in Memphis, but how they got there. I mean, my God.
Look, let's set this up, preface everything that comes afterwards by saying, bottom line, win is a win. The Lakers are getting several days off that they desperately need.
Oh, Andy, I firmly believe that in the history of organized sports, no team has ever needed 4 days of rest more than this Lakers team, ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that may, at least in some part, account for things that took place during this game. So again, that is a massive plus. And when you consider everything the Lakers have gone through this season to be where they are right now in the actual playoffs, and with a lot of respect around the league as a team you would not necessarily want to play, again, props, bottom line, they're there. But boy, this was
I mean, you're right. It is a sign of the times that people are upset with. If you had said, look, folks, in January, if you'd said, folks, you're going to get to the 2-7, but it's, you're not going to like the way the team plays down the stretch, and the play-in game against the 8 seeds can be really ugly. Like,
you'll be scooping out your eyeballs with a grapefruit spoon.
Right. Are you okay with that? I assume most people in January would have accepted that bargain. It was just a crazy game, and we'll get to Dennis Schroeder, who is a hero, no question. And particularly the Lakers defense. I mean, let's start with let's accentuate the positive here, because we'll start with Schroeder. We'll start with the defense, and particularly the D, because if you ask where the Lakers won this game, it is unquestionably on that side of the ball. Minnesota scored 60 points in the first half. They scored 16 in the final quarter and the overtime combined, and that, Andy, includes 7 points over the final 6 minutes of regulation and the overtime. And I know Minnesota ran out of juice here a little bit, but 7 points over the final 6 minutes plus overtime and 16 over the last 17 minutes of play. That is doing work on that side of the ball.
It could have had Anthony Davis not inexplicably fouled Mike Conley in the corner on a 3 with 0.1 seconds left, sending him to the line for 3 free throws.
Andy, what did I say about this segment? We are accentuating the positive.
I am accentuating the positive. I'm putting in perspective how 3 of those 16 points came on that one that one occasion, that one mishap. That was 3 points right there. They were
of the 12 Minnesota scored in the fourth.
Right. They were given to Minnesota. That's my point. They managed to do that despite that foul that sent the thing to overtime.
And, I acknowledge that the Lakers were playing a Minnesota team that was woefully undermanned, and to their credit, played really hard throughout and played very well. This is not the first time since the trade deadline that the Lakers have won games and based on the quality of their defense. And if you're looking for a reason that the Lakers could, make a lot of noise or be a team, like you said, that, sort of a trendy pick for a team you don't want to play, it's LeBron James, it's Anthony Davis, but it's mostly a defense that was at the top of the league since the deadline. And they have done some really good stuff, and the way that they were able to extend pressure, to force turnovers, and to do all that, if the offense was even halfway competent, the Lakers only scored 19 points in the fourth themselves. If they had even a halfway competent offense, they'd have won that game despite all their troubles going away in the fourth.
Well, if you look at the 9 guys who played real minutes in this game, Wenyen Gabriel played 2 minutes, picked up 2 fouls, and that was basically it for him. I think a lot
see him anymore.
No, a lot of the minutes that Wenyen would have gotten trying to do anything with Karl-Anthony Towns or whatever basically just went to Rui Hachimura. But if you look at the 9 guys who played in this game, and they basically are the rotation, the only ones that I think really make you nervous defensively are D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. Like everybody else that played in this game, the starters minus Russell, Rui Hachimura, Troy Brown Jr., Dennis Schroeder, they are all guys that are solid or better defensively with this team and play well off each other defensively with this team. And that's where that calling card, I think, ultimately, comes to fruition. That's the reason they're able to make this happen.
Yeah, and it starts, I think, in a lot of ways with Anthony Davis. Offensively, it was up and down. There was a lot. Darvin Ham
took a while for him to get going.
Yeah, he talked after the game about how AD. They still need to do a better job scheming around the double teams, around the extra attention. But I thought AD's energy, I actually thought the energy of the whole team early in the game was too much. I felt like they came out trying to hit home runs. They came out not sort of under control in the way that they have been and in their best moments. They were forcing things, I think, trying to just, burst through against a weakened Minnesota team, while the Wolves were just nailing every shot they took. And, from a I guess sort of spirit standpoint, obviously Minnesota was really picked up by that. And, Davis, though, was very engaged defensively, I thought, early, even though the Lakers had trouble getting him going on the other side of the ball. And he I thought, was at the center of a lot of what they were doing, no pun intended, of their defense throughout. But then, like you say, like the supporting cast makes sense. And this was despite, I thought, LeBron playing a pretty poor game on the defensive side of the ball before we even start about some of the loose
I thought
play
LeBron
with the ball. I didn't think he was particularly good defensively for most of the game.
I thought LeBron was actually defensively good in the second half. First half, I don't think he played well defensively at all. Second half, I actually thought
he picked it up. Yeah, that's fair. But
I think LeBron actually picked up a lot defensively. And, the team, frankly, I thought was not particularly good defensively in the first half at all. When you're talking about that energy level that was there but unfocused, it's kind of like the John Woodenism of don't, mistake activity for achievement.
Oh yeah, the Lakers, they weren't good, but I thought they were a little tweaky almost. They were just too.
Something I thought happened in the game that may have accounted for some of this was the Lakers were attacking a lot early, going at the rim, which is what you would want them to do against a team that, minus Karl-Anthony Towns and I guess Kyle Anderson working his ass off, really have no front line or rim protection of any type to speak of. And they were missing a lot of shots at the rim. They were getting offensive rebounds, but they were unable to put those back regularly too. And you combine that with Minnesota just bombing from outside, and I think that put them on tilt some.
I think I'll tell you, I think it was something specific to what you're saying about the attacking and attacking unsuccessfully. That was a problem that they need to address before they get into the first round. So talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by Ultimate Pro Basketball GM, and this is the coolest game I've played in a long time. I've always thought I could be a great NBA GM. I sure talk on this podcast like I could do it, and as it turns out, it's not that easy. Apologies to Rob Pelinka, apologies to Mitch Kupchak, although it should be noted I would have never traded for Russell Westbrook or Luol Deng. But anyway, if you've ever fantasized about managing your own basketball franchise, download Ultimate Pro Basketball GM right now, because this game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, dealing with challenging personalities, whether of your players or your coaches, hiring the right staff, trading players, training players, making draft picks, navigating the franchise through free agency, the draft, all the ups and downs of multiple seasons. Plus, you can talk trash to your friends playing the game like all the Locked On hosts do with their teams. I run the LA Knights under the pseudonym Chaz Bartender, and Ultimate Pro Basketball GM is completely free. It's playable offline. You can play it on the go, just however you want, whenever you want. And Locked On Lakers listeners get a 100% free boost to the franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure you check it out and download the game. Just visit probasketballgm.com or scan the code, look it up in the App Store. Again, probasketballgm.com, Ultimate Pro Basketball GM. Start your dynasty today.
Fun bit of housekeeping. The Lakers, we haven't mentioned, the Lakers with these results will not be exchanging picks with the New Orleans Pelicans. The Lakers keep their pick. They do not have to swap it out with the Pellies. Presumably. I mean, I guess New Orleans, could still pick swap. Like, I guess there's no rule that says they can't, but you wouldn't think that would happen. And that's another one of these things that if you'd asked, 15, 20 games into the season when New Orleans fans were figuring out exactly what day they would have the Wembanyama parade based on the Lakers draft pick, that is another welcome development of this late season turnaround. Lakers are going to be the 17th pick, I believe, in the draft, and we'll see what they do with that. Obviously, a lot of things happening between now and then, but I thought it would be worth mentioning.
Put that in your jambalaya and smoke it. Locked On
Pelican. That's right.
Who've been hanging around here.
Pelicans when it comes to that. So, Andy, you talked about the Lakers being a little bit on tilt with their inability to get a bucket early, despite, I think, attacking the rim hard, trying to attack Karl-Anthony Towns, attack the front line, all that stuff.
Well, they were attacking Karl-Anthony Towns for a while. That's a big
we'll talk about that.
In this game.
Nope. All right. Yeah.
I mean, anybody who follows us on Twitter at Cam Brothers, following my tweets on this particular subject, I'm sure they were worried I was going to have a conniption fit at some point.
Or just getting upset.
Oh my. Continue.
We'll get there. Breathe. We'll get there. But anyway, I think what was really happening was that the Lakers, who led the NBA in free throw attempts, per game, and foul rate and all that stuff by a mile, and are very used to going in, drawing contact, and getting the line. We're not getting any calls, and to say the referees let them play early in this game was, and both directions. I wasn't complaining about, but I think the Lakers were waiting on whistles and expecting whistles that they weren't getting, and that threw them off, I think, especially offensively, because a lot of those shots that you're taking aren't necessarily great shots when your primary objective is contact. And then again, so that takes the defense and it puts it out of balance. Minnesota gets up the floor. They were able to, find more open shots with cross matches, whatever. And then, like we said, I think the Lakers, you combine that with the fact that we're just turning the ball over too much, very loose with the ball. LeBron uncharacteristically inaccurate with a lot of his passes. The guy who is arguably one of the 5 most accurate passers of the last 35 or 40 years was throwing the ball at people's feet for a lot of this game. I think you put those two things
6
together,
feet above their head, one or the other.
You put those things together, and it took time, I think, for the Lakers to find any kind of rhythm in this game. It was actually remarkable, Andy. We said in the preview with Ben Beacon coming in, I said, the Lakers need to do 2 of 3 to win. I think sort of comfortably win this game. Limit your turnovers, make your free throws, get to the line and make free throws, and hit some threes. Any 2 of those 3 things, I think the Lakers would win. They were 0 for 3 with those things at halftime. And meanwhile, Minnesota was shooting over 50% and had, I want to say, 8 more three-pointers at the half than the Lakers did.
At the half, they were 9 of 17 from behind the arc. The Lakers were 3 of 13, so 6 more.
So 6 more. Ugh. That ain't good.
Yeah. I mean, they shot 59% from the field in the first half. The Lakers shot 41% rounding up. It was a really ugly game for about, I'd say, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 quarters for the Lakers. They felt completely out of rhythm. It was choppy. The guys were really not on the same page because you were seeing a lot of fumbling of passes, like guys who seemed like they weren't expecting the ball to come to them, weren't expecting the ball to arrive like where it did, placement wise, whatever. Just offensively, everybody seemed just completely, forget not even same page, like not even dealing with the same book.
They weren't right. They weren't even reading. I'm not even sure they were reading in the same language.
Right. And then defensively, they were just not on point at all.
Right. And I think those 2 things are related.
Probably.
It's also,
there was the sequence where Dennis Schroeder hits a 3 and is celebrating the 3. He's doing his ice water in the veins. And the guy that he should have been marking ends up getting a breakaway dunk off a made 3. And, Dennis Schroeder ended up like one of the heroes of this game. So I'm not saying this to harp on Schroeder. I'm just giving that as an example.
That was the worst play that they had in the first half. I mean, and it was funny. Like you look at this and, Schroeder turned it, and we'll come back to him in a second. Schroeder turned an ankle in the first half, and I thought he was done for the night. Instead, at somewhere at halftime, he saw the LeBron James of ankles and got himself back into the game. And
he can see a German doctor. It's okay.
They just in Germany they just call them doctors. But he was a
just
hero.
His HMO right there.
He was in network. It's okay. And it was, he was a hero in the second half. But like on a lot of ways, you look at this and, the Lakers figuring out a way to win this game defensively on a night where, they got 24 from Anthony Davis, who, again, 15 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks. He was active. I mean, I don't have a problem with Anthony, with what AD did. He certainly, I think, was trying to find ways to score and attack.
He became more effective, I thought, as the game went along.
Yeah, but I think he was trying early. He tried to make it. I think he tried. He had that giant sort of put back throw donkey thing that he.
I got to be honest. If you're not trying, get the F out of here. I mean, we've reached a place where I don't really give a damn if they're trying or not.
No, I don't mean that he was like kudos for try. I mean, he was actively trying to engage offensively and get the ball in the bucket and attack and things like that early. It just wasn't very effective, I think.
Except for one thing we will get into.
Okay. No, we'll breathe. Breathe. But like,
dog.
Vanderbilt was sort of invisible in his 22 minutes. D'Lo was terrible, just flat out terrible bench down the stretch. He was 1 of 9. Reeves was not very good. He was 4 of 13. And, Troy Brown was 1 of 5. The Lakers were wildly inefficient in this game. And LeBron, even with the 12 of 21, for most of the game was deep underwater as a plus minus, well into the 20s in a game that he was playing a lot of. And so, they didn't get, Schroeder came alive in the second half, but in a lot of ways it speaks to their sort of grit and the defense in the second half. There was really no reason they should have won this game. If you look statistically at what was going on, particularly through 3 quarters, there was no reason they should have won this game. They still, Andy, lost the 3-point battle by 6. They were as bad. Minnesota finished this game because, again, they didn't score in the fourth quarter, basically, and the overtime, down at 43%. They were still better than the Lakers. Where the Lakers did make up some of that gap in the second half was at the free throw line. They got Minnesota into the penalty really early in the fourth quarter.
I mean, I think over the course of the game, especially as it started tightening down the stretch, not just for the Lakers, but for Minnesota, some of the advantages that the Lakers inherently had in this game, with Minnesota being down, whatever you want to think of Rudy Gobert, he is a large presence who can occupy Anthony Davis, if nothing else, on the boards. I mean,
the Lakers were very effective, particularly early on the offensive glass, and that is something that is much harder to do if Rudy Gobert is there.
They were not.
And the Lakers, were aggressive, blocking shots and all that kind of stuff. And going after the, again, harder to do when Gobert is down. There for putbacks and stuff like that.
Right, and no Jaden McDaniels, no Naz Reid, who's been really good as a backup center against the Lakers, sometimes outplaying the guys starting at center for the Timberwolves. And Anthony Edwards did not have a good game the last time the Lakers played. Did not have a good game in this game. His shoulders seemed to be bothering him. I don't know if it was a combination of that, the defense playing against him. Darvin Ham said after the game that they made a point of wanting to double Edwards a lot, make him uncomfortable. They clearly succeeded. I think in a lot
that
of
explains ways, that does explain a little bit of the some of the open threes in the first half for Minnesota.
Darvin talked about that. He said that they were doubling a lot, and frankly, the rotations after those doubles were not on point at all, and that led to a lot of open looks that Minnesota was just draining. I think over time, the advantages that the Lakers had heading into this game eventually leveled themselves out, and Minnesota, as much as the Lakers were exhausted, Minnesota was absolutely exhausted down the stretch. But props to them, man. They played their asses off. They really
all right,
did.
Let's talk Dennis Schroeder. Let's talk LeBron, and let's talk about the thing, Andy, that made you just so angry about this game. Because I think there are a couple things that are related to the LeBron conversation, and we'll get to all of it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel and the NBA playoffs. They are just around the corner. The Lakers are in them officially, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000, $1,000 bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, really easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores, or get little saucy with an exclusive bet like the 2x3, 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes. I sincerely hope nobody bet the Lakers for that one. Plus, in this game, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. If you're interested in the second game of the Western Conference play-in, the Pelicans are currently 5.5 point favorites over the visiting Oklahoma City Thunder. No Zion for the Pelicans, in case you weren't aware. So in any event, do not miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So Andy, the Lakers will begin their official playoff push on Sunday, high noon Pacific time in Memphis. That's game one. So the Lakers are basically off their feet until then. They will be scouting. They will be game planning, but they will not be moving very much over the next 4 days. Again, no team in the history of organized sports has ever needed time off more than these Lakers. LeBron James in particular, who was very efficient offensively. And if you just look at the box score, 12-21, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 30 points, it looks like a LeBron James game, but it didn't look like it if you were watching it. Just the precision that he usually plays with, the decision-making that he usually plays with. Certainly as the game went along, he had that play, trying to off a turnover, goes back, throws his body down, onto the ground to try to get a loose ball with Taurean Prince. And there were moments like that. I think the man is tired. The man is very, very tired. And he is not immune to the effects of fatigue. The Lakers as a team need 4 days off. LeBron James as a person needs it more than anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's 38 years old in season 20 with 1 billion miles on the odometer. LeBron's minutes were going to be something the Lakers had to be cognizant of when he joined the team, 5 seasons ago, much less where they are now. And, there was that period where he was carrying a massive load when AD was out, and he absolutely needs that time off. He has conceded the fact that he is exhausted. You mentioned some of LeBron's decision-making in this game. Beyond passing, and I want to preface this by saying, the thing I'm about to get into is not purely a LeBron thing. This was a team-wide thing, and I would say you could put it just as much on AD as LeBron. I'm just mentioning a particular sequence with LeBron because I thought it embodied this issue. There was a possession in the fourth quarter where LeBron got in the lane and Karl-Anthony Towns started to challenge the shot, and LeBron puts up a floater rather than taking it straight at Towns and making him defend. And
Towns had 5 fouls. Five fouls for basically the entire fourth quarter.
Right, at 5 fouls at this point. And it just summarized my frustration with the team throughout this game. Karl-Anthony Towns spent a lot of time in foul trouble, and we talked about with Ben Beacon from Locked On Wolves the importance of the Lakers going at Karl-Anthony Towns and getting their best player potentially in foul trouble, getting that only back line of defense they have, and that's not even what Karl-Anthony Towns does to begin with. Force him to either defend out of a comfort zone or pick up fouls. Later on, there was a sequence where LeBron broke the ankle of, I don't remember who was defending him. He had a path to the rim with Karl-Anthony Towns, the only guy possibly in the neighborhood to defend this. He ends up opting for a baby jumper off glass, misses it. Next possession, he gets a switch that he created on Karl-Anthony Towns on the perimeter, takes a 3, misses it. Next trip down, he threw the ball into the 6th row. Earlier in the game, in the third quarter, when Karl-Anthony Towns had, I believe, 4 fouls, AD had an opportunity to go right at him. Instead, he hit Austin Reeves in the lane on a dive on a pass, ended up a turnover. And it's like, it's not even that play was a bad idea in and of itself. It's, dude, you have this guy that you should be actively looking to get into more foul trouble. Put him on the bench. Force Chris Finch to make horrible decisions. Karl-Anthony Towns, the foul trouble he was in this game was more Karl-Anthony Towns putting himself.
They had a couple moments where they seemed like, they picked up the second and third really quick and like all that. They got the fourth.
At least
the fifth foul was himself just yanking Anthony Davis to the ground.
Well, he also had an offensive foul where he was driving on Jared Vanderbilt and swung his arm out wildly. He may have had a third off. Yeah, he may have had a third offensive foul. Like, Cat did more to put himself in foul trouble than the Lakers actually did. And again, given the context, I just found it inexplicable.
I think there were two moments where LeBron had Towns isolated on the perimeter. One in the fourth, I think you just talked about. I think there was another one in either an OT or late in the fourth, and neither time, but settled for jumpers both times. And I think, when you talk about a guy who's tired, I think that's where you see it. And look, he's not the first guy to pull up over a big because the big's giving him a little bit of space and all that kind of stuff. But just time and place and game recognition.
Especially for somebody like LeBron, who's one of the smartest players to ever play this game.
And I just don't think, I think the legs aren't there. And the legs aren't there for a lot of the things that you would want LeBron to be able to do. And
like I said, it was a team-wide thing.
It was. And like Minnesota, when Towns was playing with 5 fouls, did a pretty good job of hiding him, of collapsing him, doing all kinds of things to try to keep the Lakers away from Towns.
But
they still absolutely agree.
You can hunt it more than they did.
Right, needed to do a better job of it. It's a weird thing in sports where you start to that line between getting out of what you do in an effort to try to do something very specific, where they take advantage of a certain match. You see it all the time in basketball where, a big has a mismatch on him and a guard playing, but like somebody who doesn't normally play in the post. And all of a sudden it's like you're trying to force feed this matchup by getting out of your offense and doing it. And I think sometimes teams don't want to go overboard. Karl-Anthony Towns has 5 fouls. We're going to spend the next, 10 possessions hunting him. But there's somewhere in the middle where the Lakers could have stayed in the rhythm of their offense, but still found ways to put the ball on the floor and attack, make Towns help, do something. Even if he's not the primary defender. They didn't do a very good job of it. They didn't do a very good job of a lot of things in this game, but Andy, they still won.
Damn right they did.
And it's like the more I'm getting away from the frustration of watching this awful basketball contest, the better I feel about what the Lakers did on Tuesday. There is something to be said because it wasn't a bleep around, playing with your food kind of game. I think the Lakers played.
No,
it was just a game where they weren't playing particularly well. Minnesota was uncharacteristically good shooting the ball early, stuff like that. And, that's going to happen sometimes. If the Lakers I don't think it was an arrogant performance that got them into this situation, and they managed to win the game. And that says something. That is a meaningful bit of information to talk about here.
We spent much of the beginning of the show emphasizing the idea that the bottom line, Lakers got themselves into the playoffs. And if in January you had said this is the place they're going to land, everybody like, oh, hell yeah. There is something apropos in a lot of ways about, given how difficult all the struggles that have accompanied this season, there is something apropos, like poetic, maybe unpleasant poetry, but poetic nonetheless, where the Lakers had to really scrap and claw to secure this 7 seed. Like it feels very in line with, just for better or for worse, the way this season has gone along. But again, you cannot overstate how incredible it is for the Lakers to be in this position right now,
Yep.
I can promise Memphis, they're not afraid of the Lakers because I don't think they're afraid of anybody. But I really doubt that they're like, sweet.
Oh, they'd have preferred to play
LeBron.
Minnesota. I guarantee you they'd have preferred to play Minnesota.
Sweet. LeBron
Absolutely.
and AD, nice.
Absolutely. All right, Locked On Lakers. We'll get lots to get into. We'll talk. We can talk about any worrisome trends about this play-in combined with some of the other stuff through the week. We got plenty of time for that. But Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to watch the show. Again, 15,000 subscribers. Thanks to everybody for the support of the channel. We're going to be setting up some previews of the first round, at least one, as many as we can fit in between now and Sunday to get you ready for that one. The Lakers back in the playoffs, the real big boy playoffs, and it's something fun to talk about. And they got a shot. See everyone Thursday.